Okay, everybody, it is time now for Truth, Justice, and the NBA. It is a busy May 2nd. You know, Mayweather and Pacquiao fight this evening. You got the Run for the Roses, the Kentucky Derby, coming up later this afternoon. But, of course, we're talking Western Conference NBA playoffs on this show. We'll talk about the East on the next show. Let's begin by catching up to speed on San Antonio and the Clippers, who will play Game 7 on Saturday night, May 2nd, from Staples, in a series in which, up to this point, we've seen the road team have the majority of success. And that includes each of the last 3 games in which the home team has found themselves on the losing end. In Game 5, with the series tied at 2, it came down to the end between the Spurs and Clippers, even though early on the Clippers had a 14-point lead but couldn't hold it. And the Spurs, because of bench play for the most part, their bench outscoring the Clipper bench 48-17, had a 7-point lead entering the final quarter. But Clippers started chipping away. You know, Chris Paul had 19 points in the game, 10 assists. Blake Griffin had 30 points for the game. But again, not to put too much on Blake Griffin, because the Clippers lost this as a team. But you wonder in the final minute what might have been for Blake. He missed 2 big free throws back to back with about 40 seconds to go. Prior to that, he had a shot from the inside blocked by the greatest power forward of all time, Tim Duncan. And even when it looked like Blake might be the hero, in the final seconds with the Clippers down 1, his go-ahead bucket, offensive interference. His teammate DeAndre Jordan got the ball as it was in the cylinder. It's a good call. Spurs were able to hit a free throw, then get an offensive board up the second miss. And Kawhi Leonard, Leonard in the game, ended up with 18 points, had a bad night shooting at 5 of 16, but hit 2 free throws at the end that took the lead from 2-4 and put the game out of reach. Spurs, they end up pulling the game out by 4 and 3-2 series lead. And this is normally when San Antonio basically puts a series away. They're up 3-2, coming back home to AT&T. You think they're going to win, right? Doc Rivers and company in Game 6 answered the call, and they answered it big time. You might say, well, Tim Duncan's been logging too many minutes. Well, I don't blame it on Duncan for Game 6 for that loss that the Spurs had. He had 12 points. He was 6 of 9 shooting in the game. And also, too, I can't blame it on Bellinelli. I mean, if it weren't for Bellinelli coming off the bench for the Spurs, who had 7 threes in the game and 23 points, the Spurs might have lost this thing by double digits, and it might have gotten away. The game might have gotten away from them earlier than that. They were able to hang around thanks to Bellinelli. But it was Ginobili who struggled for San Antonio. 1 of 6. Danny Green in the game, just 3 of 9. So you wonder, where the Spurs are at right now, okay? Will experience prevail in game number 7, or will the Game 6 woes, which had Game 4 woes, and of course the bad game in game number 1, show through in game number 7? One thing I do know about San Antonio, though, besides the experience, they're an older team now. And you wonder if this Game 7 coming up will be the last that we've seen of a great era in basketball, or will it be one of the situations where the Spurs were tested, but they were able to come through. In the ballgame, the Spurs had 13 turnovers, but hurt themselves early with 8 in the first quarter alone. And a Popovich team can't do that to start off a game. It's that simple. The big thing about this game, Blake Griffin proved why he is an all-star and why he is one of the best power forwards right now. And again, it's been a great matchup of power forwards between he and Duncan. Griffin with 26 points in the game and 12 boards. And this time, he hit all of his free throws. Went 4-4 from the line. Redick had 19 in the game. DeAndre Jordan, of course, the Spurs resorted to the hack of Jordan, and they're going to. As in the game, Jordan missing 8 free throws, but DeAndre made 7 of them as well. 14 rebounds, 15 points in the game. So a great night for him. And Matt Barnes, I've been hard on him. He came through. He only shot the ball 3 times, but made all 3 shots. Had 8 points and 7 boards. Biggest thing I think about Game 7 is going to be the play of the bench. And so far, this has belonged to San Antonio. It can't just be about Jamal Crawford, one of the NBA's best 6 men, because he's not always going to hit his 3-point shots. The last game, he had just 10 points. Austin Rivers, we saw what he could do in Game 4, but he's come way, way down since then. Only made 1 shot out of 6 in this Game 6. So Game 7, Staples Center, and all-time in game number 7s when the Spurs are on the road, 1 and 3. So, again, we could talk about all these stats and all these trends, but the bottom line, it will come down to, to me, the money players in this game. We'll see if Chris Paul can hold his end of the deal. And we'll see if the bench of the Clippers, I don't expect them to outscore the Spurs bench, but they need to remain somewhat competitive and get the most out of it, because if they can't, it's hard for me to imagine San Antonio losing a Game 7. Now, let's go ahead and talk about 2 other series. These series have wrapped up. We haven't had a chance to go over them yet, and that is the 5th and final game between Portland and Memphis, in which 99 points was the winning score for the winning team in game number 4. They happened to be the Blazers, only this time in game 5 it was Memphis coming through 99-93. The Grizzlies were able to overcome one hell of an effort by C.J. McCollum of the Blazers. Came off the bench, had 33 points in the game, wow, and 4 threes in the third quarter. You could say he was the equivalent in a losing effort to what Bellinelli did for San Antonio in their last game. I mean, thanks to the play of those guys, their teams at least had a shot, had an opportunity. You know, Memphis gets out early. We see Portland, thanks to McCollum, get on a huge run in the game and actually have a brief lead, and then trailed by just a slim margin at the end of 3 quarters. And then you see the play of the paint. This is really where I think the game was won. Okay, and I know that Leonard, for the most part, did not have a terrific series. Okay, he's capable of playing better than what we saw. But it was the play of the paint that made the difference, and just too much Gasol, too much Randolph. You know, Marc Gasol in the game, 26 points, 14 boards, and Zach Randolph with a monster of a series with 16 points, and also, too, he contributed on the glass as well. LaMarcus Aldridge logged in well over 40 minutes a game of these games that we saw, so you wonder if fatigue set in, and I think it did, okay, because he did not shoot the ball well at all, only 5 of 18 in game number 5, 14 points. He did have 9 boards, but for the series, he took 112 shots, and that's more than 20 shots a game. That's a lot for a power forward to take, and made just 37 of them. So it was, I mean, he was definitely overworked, but he's really all they had in the paint. And we're going to mention him later on in our show to close it out, because he becomes now an unrestricted free agent at the end of the year, and he has a major price tag on him if anybody wants to take that on too. You know, Vince Carter off the bench did good, 4 of 10 field goal shooting, not a great stat, but again he contributed with 9 points. And Tony Allen, 5 steals in the game. That's what he does best. You know, him and Kawhi Leonard, the Spurs, they are pickpocketers in the biggest sense of the word. The Grizzlies are going to have a hard time in this next series, though. Even though they closed out Portland, you know, on Sunday they'll play Game 1 at Oakland against the Warriors. 2 teams that couldn't be any more different in terms of style. Warriors like to go up and down the court, score fast. Memphis will grind it out and make it a 90-point game if they have to. I just think right now there's too much of an injury factor for the Grizzlies, and I think the Warriors are playing a little bit better than Memphis at this particular stage. And Conley is, you know, still out indefinitely because of the facial injury. He had to have 2 metal plates, you know, screwed in, you know, for the broken bones, you know, in his face. So it is right now a big thing if Conley cannot play in the series. And remember, he already had an injured foot. So congrats to Memphis for getting this far. I just think they don't have a shot at getting this thing past 5 games. I look for Golden State to cruise. And then Houston and Dallas, okay? Talking about game number 5 to wrap things up on the Western Conference Truth, Justice, and the NBA. This was an ugly game to watch. There were almost 40 turnovers in this game. 21 committed by Houston. Free throw shooting. The Rockets won this game despite the fact that they missed 17 out of 36 free throws. Just barely were over 50% from the charity stripe. And they know whoever they play on Monday at home, whether it's the Spurs or the Clippers, you shoot that back from the free throw line, you will lose. You can't get away with that once you get to the second round. The first round, they got away with it, though. Big reason, Josh Smith off the bench. He really sparked Houston's bench. That was one of the biggest differences in this game because Dallas, you know, for what was on the line, played about as hard as they could, but the pace of the game just wasn't theirs, and they couldn't meet the pace because they only made 1 3-pointer out of 13 in the first half. But Josh Smith off the bench for Houston was big with 20 points. Houston's bench outscoring Dallas 32-14. That was a major factor. And Dwight Howard had 18 points and 19 boards. Looked a little bit more like the quote Superman in the quote. And 10 of those points and 7 of those boards came in the third quarter. The Beard, James Harden, 28 points in the game and hit 4 3-pointers, but he's got to shore up on those turnovers. He had too many. He had 6 for the game. And Terrence Jones in the fourth quarter when Dallas was getting close, Jones would help seal it with 6 of 11 shooting, and he scored 10 of his 15 in the fourth quarter. So for Houston, their first series win in 6 seasons. It's hard to believe that they hadn't won a series this decade. So Kevin McHale and the Rockets will host either San Antonio or the Clippers on Monday night. And for Dirk Nowitzki, 22 points, but it took him 23 shot attempts to get there, and he made only 8 of those. And Monte Ellis, he had a nice game, 25 points, but turned it over way too many times and had a ankle injury in the fourth quarter, had to sit out for a little bit. When he came back, he wasn't the same. And J.J. Barea, a big spark plug in the Game 4 win to keep the series alive. Game 5, pretty much of a no-show, making only 3 of 12 shots. Tyson Chandler, we bring his name up as we wrap up the show because he will be an unrestricted free agent as well. He only had 11 points in the ball game, but he got those in just 6 shots. He made 5 of them. So the big thing about Dallas this offseason, Mark Cuban, the Shark Tank, boy, he's really going to have to reevaluate the pocketbook because he's got 2 players who may not be back, and I think one who definitely won't be back, and that is Rajon Rondo, as he made $13 million this past year and really was a bad mix for this team, and especially for the coach, Rick Carlisle. I don't think Dallas fans will be hurt. I don't think their feelings are going to be hurt at all if Rondo doesn't wear a Maverick uniform. In fact, the playoff money that Dallas has either got or will be getting, Rondo's not going to get a penny of it. So that kind of tells you the future with Rondo and the Mavs. Tyson Chandler, mentioned him being an unrestricted free agent. $15 million is what he made this last year. And the guy's getting up there in years. Can't imagine Dallas re-signing him. So that's $28 million of that salary for the team, occupied by just 2 players alone. They have other unrestricted free agents as well. Amari Stoudemire, but the guy only made I think $300,000 to close out after he made over $20 million a year with New York. So we'll see what happens there. Barea and Jefferson are free agents too. LaMarcus Aldridge from Portland is a major name. Okay, $16 million is what he made this past year, and there are several teams who would love his services. And wherever Aldridge is going to sign, don't be surprised if he signs just a 1-year contract, because he knows after this next year TV contracts kick in, the brand new ones, that means the salary cap will soar big time, and that means a player who's making typically about $12 million can expect to make maybe as much as $18 million this next year. So Aldridge, I'm sure, is not signing long-term wherever he goes. Wesley Matthews, who got hurt middle of the year for Portland, he is an unrestricted free agent. $7 million is what he made. And Robin Lopez at center, $6 million a year. And I thought he was worth more than $6 million, but that's it. His future's in doubt with Portland because he's unrestricted too. And for the Pelicans, since we didn't get a chance to review their salary cap information because time constraints, Omar Asik is really the only true notable Pelican who makes a lot of money that may not be back over $8 million a year. Of course, he played for Houston and backed up Dwight Howard previously. So we're going to go to the logo sheet, and we've got to eliminate 2 teams from it. Of course, Portland. Yeah, you got about to get the Ghostbuster sign. And so are the Mavericks, okay? And as Mark Cuban from Shark Tank would say, we're out. Or I'm out. There you are. So there it is. We will get bigger logos, I promise, once we get to round number 2. And there you have it. If we can get it positioned right. There we go. And just 5 left. There'll be 4 left after Saturday. Game 7 between the Spurs and Clippers. And we'll talk about that series 2 series from now. Or 2 shows from now. The next show, we'll talk about the Eastern Conference and those 2 series coming up between Washington and Atlanta. We'll review game number 6 between the Nets and the Hawks, tell you how Atlanta did it. And, of course, Chicago-Cleveland, that monster series, which will begin early next week. By the way, one more thing, too, before we wrap it up on this long show. Sunday, 2 games in the NBA, Washington at Atlanta at noon. 2:30 Oklahoma time will be game 1 between Memphis and the Warriors. Games on broadcast television. ABC will have both games. Chicago-Cleveland on Monday night on TNT, and I imagine the Houston game will be on TNT as well. Houston will host either the Clippers or the Spurs, the survivor of that game tonight. Have fun on this extremely busy Sports Saturday. We'll catch you next time.